Hi, everyone. This is a Rodent Society Zoom presentation for today. Our presenter is going to be Grace Ryan, a good friend of mine. I met her here at Virginia Tech. She was studying industrial design when I met her, and we just kind of clicked. Our energies clicked, and we connected. And right now, she's living in Seattle, and she started this brand, this business, and it's really intriguing. I want to learn some more about it, which is one of the reasons why she's presenting today with us. So this is our fourth Zoom presentation, and yeah, excited. So without further ado, uh, Grace kicks off.
Thanks, Ozzy. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. I, like Ozzy said, live in Seattle and am a designer and artist. And I'm going to talk about today my process towards coming to what I'm doing now creatively. And I'm also some advice on using time in undergraduate school, in design school, um, to develop yourself as a designer. So with that, I'm gonna start. Are we seeing the screen, folks?
Yes,
Okay. Now, are we full screen on the first slide?
yes.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. So Dollhouse is the name of my brand, and Dollhouse is fashion for future makers. To give a little bit of background on me, I'm from Nyack, New York. I love New York. It's a beautiful, incredible, vibrant place. I grew up in Nyack and I went to school, high school, and all of my years at Green Meadow Waldorf School. And during that time, I was really interested in art, physics, basketball, and just overall had an incredible time. Then I went to Virginia Tech and studied industrial design there for 4 years and was also part of the Honors Discovery Calhoun program. Had some internships there, and from that, I had an internship at Boeing in Seattle. So in 2022, I first came to Seattle, and I got a job out of that, and just decided to move out to the West Coast. And that experience really spurred a lot of my creative work and what I'll talk about. Um, but really, my thesis for what I'm interested in with design is giving people experiences with art, for the purpose of connecting with themselves, their community, and the place that they live. So I'll be sort of explaining Dollhouse, but just keep this in mind that this is the ethos and sort of the thesis for my entire career thus far. So this is a little bit of an overview of what I'll be talking about. We're here, and after this, I'm going to get into story, Dollhouse, the production of making the brand, reflections on design school, and being a person. Alrighty. So story is so important for us as humans. It's one of the ways that we understand our present. It's how we understand the past, and I believe it's how we make the future. Um, Toys that kind of teach children about story are doll houses. Children are so interested in stories. Like, after food and nurture, children are asking, can you tell me a story? And it's something that's so natural to us as people. And so dollhouses are a toy that really allow children to explore their own narratives. And something about dollhouses, which I think is really special, is because of the scale. Like, as you can see in this photo, the kids are not to scale with the house. This is something that in order to really interact with, they have to enter their imagination. And so this toy acts as a tool for entering the imagination and allows children to have agency in their lives where they might not be having that much agency because they're children. So this is a really powerful tool and allows children and, in my view, people to take take agency and take hold of their own story and own narrative and practice imagining a life outside of their current context. So in this way, story is a really powerful tool. And I named my brand Dollhouse because my goal is to empower people to embrace connection with themselves and the places that they are in order to make a future which they believe in and that they want to inhabit it. So as I said, connecting with art and being with art in order to connect with themselves, their community, and the places that they live. So this is what Dollhouse is about, but how is this all related to fashion? So when I moved to Seattle, I was excited, but I didn't really have any expectations of what it was going to be like. And what I noticed is that Seattle has this really, really interesting dynamic because we have all of these corporations. We have Google, we have Microsoft, we have Tesla, Meta, and so the way that the city is laid out is very much in service of both these corporations and the people who work at these corporations. So these are tech workers. And tech workers don't have a lot of time, so it's very much a service economy based on their convenience and their social lives and everything, which is fine. However, these big corporations are not really giving back to the culture and the society of the place of Seattle. Seattle, before like colonialism and came in and everything like that, this place was home to many native tribes. And after that, it was a lot of okay. After that, the economy was primarily based on fishing and ports and stuff like that. And with now tech is the primary economic stuff. So we have all this concrete, which I want you to think about the gray of that. But we also have all of these people who are not having the opportunity to express themselves and to use their voices and their truth. And I see this through the incredible expression of art through graffiti throughout the city. I go to a lot of galleries, and that's what I like to do in my free time. And honestly, my favorite art that I see on a consistent basis is on the highway, is on I-5. And so for that reason, I call I-5, which is Interstate 5, the museum, because it has this incredible, alive, and vibrant culture of people, writers, graffiti writers, consistently developing work, showing up, and speaking their voice into truth. And so I had this idea that, we have all of these people who are part of a collective, they're part of a corporation, but they're not having the opportunity to say, like, this is my voice and this is who I am. So the idea with this collection is that we bring together this sort of uniform of corporate dress as well as this expressionism that is so evident and vibrant with graffiti. And so I started just doing sketches. This happened actually a year ago now, almost. And just looking at this idea of what would it be like to impose graffiti on suits, and how would that make people feel to wear? How would people react to seeing that? And I started to develop it, and at first it was really just an idea. Like I bought a suit and uh, made some stencils, and then um, took acrylic paint and made it happen. And through going out to design events and everything, I ended up meeting someone who worked at an architecture firm. Her name is Michelle Hook. She works at Rob Hutch Architecture. She invited me to give a presentation about like what I was interested in, because at the time I was building my furniture for my apartment and just participating in making things and having Dollhouse Studio be a force outside of my work at Boeing. And so I went and I gave a presentation about my work, and I had also connected with another gallery where I was going to be showing the piece, which you can see in the bottom right corner here, at a group show at a studio called Basecamp Studios. And at the presentation at the architecture firm, there was someone there who was a community organizer for a arts festival that we have in Seattle called Bumbershoot. And after the presentation, he reached out to me and asked me, would you be interested in like growing this idea into a line to produce for Bumbershoot? And I really like I really only had like needed an excuse to do this because I've always felt like I was going to start my own business. But it was just a matter of like, what idea am I going to connect to? Because I'm someone who really, like, I'm excited about so many things. I really don't have a problem with creative block or anything, but I am working on bringing things to fruition. And so this was an incredible opportunity. And I said, yes, Greg, I will do that. And I will commit to making a collection and launching it at Bumbershoot and making this real. So that was sort of the crux of like how everything started. And from there, I got a business license and started manufacturing these clothes, started the creative direction for marketing and photo shoots and the set design, and started to like really make the business. The idea with it is that it's going to help people in this Seattle space be more in touch with their city and with their expressive self, because Seattle is not at all known for its fashion, which this is kind of related to what you were saying, Ozzy, about place and going to the city. And I think why this brand is perfect for Seattle is because Seattle has a lot of space. It has a lot of room to grow in the arts sense. And so producing this is a gift to the city because it's inviting people to step up and show up for art in their own lives and express themselves. So back into the production of this, making it happen, because we all know it's one thing to have an idea, but it's a totally other sort of energy to get concrete about things and make it happen. So a lot of this stuff is my first time doing it. I graduated last year, so I've not had experience in bringing something from an idea into production. And so my first attempt at this was making flats, which is what you see here. A flat is a image of a garment, which is the front and the back, and it has the graphics or all the seams and everything laid out. And it's to, you give it to your pattern maker to make the pattern. So my first idea was I'm going to start from scratch and do cut and sew with a manufacturer, which means that I would work with someone and they would have a pattern maker make a pattern for the garment that I laid out with this flat, and then I get a sample, and then I approve the sample or we make changes to it. And then I send it back, and then they pattern braid it, which means they make it into many different sizes for however many sizes I'm going to be giving to my customers. And then we go into production from that. But in order to get the cost analysis for what each garment is going to cost, they need to do the time study. So there's a lot of investment upfront with cut and sew. And I learned a lot from going through this process of working with the manufacturer. The people I worked with are really great, and they helped educate me on what was needed to bring everything together. However, I felt like, at this point, it's going to make more sense for me to work with blanks rather than cut and sew. And so I pivoted, and this was a really scary decision for me because I was very much set on doing cut and sew. However, it just didn't make sense and monetarily. And what I really wanted was to bring the idea to people. And I took a step back and looked at it and was like, you know what? This is not exactly how I imagined things would be, but what's important is bringing this into the world. And if we need to change the strategy, so be it. So we pivoted, and I didn't do cut and sew, I did blanks. And so what that meant was sourcing pre-made garments, just like you would if you're gonna like have a t-shirt brand. And so I found a number of quality blanks, which I sourced and ordered, and then I did all of the manufacturing myself for putting on service designs. And all of the service designs are have a base of a direct-to-fabric print, which uses heat pressing to melt the glue of the graphic into the fabric. So it's able to be washed and dried and ironed. And other garments have acrylic paint on top to give it a nice texture, which is reminiscent of the way that graffiti has texture as it's layered and painted over. And so this was a lot of work, and I've included some of these like not so nice photos because this is a lot of the time of what it is to start a brand, and I am really grateful because it really taught me how there's so many different ways to be creative within your business. Like, for example, to lay out the graphics, I would create jigs so that I could figure out how to line everything up without using a ruler to measure. And that really saved a lot of time. I also would lay the graphics out in a specific way each time so that I was doing like an assembly line rather than doing one garment at a time. And ultimately, this whole thing, like as starting from beginning, was just me. And I ended up working with some incredible collaborators, but it was so important for me to save my energy to be able to give myself to this, but also, still be a person and have also my full-time job on top of this, as well as take care of my health. So being creative and smart about my resources was really important. And, even though this was not exactly the way that I wanted to go through this, because I didn't go do cut and sew, I was really, really happy and proud of the quality of the garments, which is like a really big goal of mine this year was to be be doing work that I'm really proud of. And to be able to do that with Dollhouse was just so incredibly satisfying. And I'm really happy with the way that the garments and the products have come out. Now, once everything was made, like I have all my inventory, it's time to do marketing and get everything ready for like the photo shoot and all of these images that are going to communicate to people the story that I've verbalized to you about how it's like bringing yourself to the office and speaking your truth. But I really wanted to also make a statement about office culture. And a lot of this is based on not just my observation of the city, but also being a person who works in an office. And I really, really strongly believe that we are in a renaissance of work. And the way that, corporations are running are not conducive to life for people. And I want to be a future maker of the new ways that people work. So some of the ways that I'm thinking about that are like 4-day work weeks and but still paying people the same amount. Because I believe that if we worked less, we would just be transitioning some of that energy into giving back to our society. So I'm really curious, like just in my own more future practice, like working with people to look at what would we be doing if we didn't have like jobs to do for one extra day a week? Would we be volunteering? Would we be spending more time parenting? Would more people be creative? And how would that impact our society? So I'm really fired up about this, but people have been working this way for years. Like at my corporation, people have like worked at the same place, the same job, the same office for 20 years. And to face this, I believe a fact that the current work cultures are not serving us can be painful. So I created this concept called office surrealism, which visually represents the surrealism and the illogicalness of our current work structures, and created objects for the photo shoot that illustrate this. So this is the process for a maybe it was like 10 by well, there was 240 sheets of paper, which this backdrop was made of. And I made it by using Illustrator and making 240 canvases and then printing each of them out and then stapling them on these ribbons here to create this backdrop that could like flow in the wind. And the idea is that, you know, everything has been so stagnant with our culture with work, and it doesn't make any sense anymore, and it's surreal. So that's why everything is pictured like with surrealism here. The clock is not next to the clock. So it's meant to make people feel a little bit uncomfortable and make them question, why are we doing things the way that we are? The next object which I created for the photo shoot is ErgoLab chairs, which is also meant to feel a little bit uncomfortable. The idea with this is that once we left for the pandemic, the chairs started to grow And they grew because we left them untended. And it's it's sort of like if you leave a field without cutting the grass, how nature will sort of come back and reclaim the space. That's what it's calling back to. And this is about how, we have all this ergonomic furniture, which can be helpful to a certain extent, but I think that approach to have a lot of ergonomic furniture is not really the answer to um, ergonomic problems in the body from people sitting. It's more that we have a culture which expects people to sit for 40 hours a week. And this is meant to illustrate that the problem isn't the chair, the problem is our culture. So with all of that, I'm going to present to you the images that I worked with my dear friend Sabina Bauer, Grace Park, and Dominique Buclair on bringing to life for the brand. And I also worked with some incredible models who you'll see pictured here. So this is Dollhouse Fashion for Future Makers. This first image that you see here is the carbon copy shirt. It is a graphic that says I Heart 5, which is an homage to the graffiti writers who bring to life the Seattle Interstate I-5. This is Shay. This is the Camo Rev 2 suit worn by Maddie. And this is picturing the lettering ABC turning around in 3 dimensions, which is about different, like being neurodivergent and being able to see letters turn around and embracing that individuality within the workplace. And here we see the camo suits as well as the carbon copy shirts. And here we're seeing people interacting and connecting through art and self-expression. This is the original suit, Camo Rev 1, worn by Jake Ladd. Jake has been an incredible help throughout this and helped me bring it to life through the beginning. I believe that self-expression and bringing yourself as well as being part of the collective is how we remake work and how we make a society that is giving back to each other. So we're not just interested in our own success, but also the success of our communities. Are you blending in or standing out? So as I discussed, I created this for Bumbershoot, and I launched the brand on August 31st of 2024 with the help of my incredible friend Anna. She helped me vend and set up, and it was so fulfilling and incredible to bring these pieces to people in Seattle and talk to them about how they feel about work and be able to have people buy this stuff was just such a dream come true. I've done so many projects in my life, and what I'm doing now, I very much feel in my purpose, and I feel like I'm doing what I was meant to bring to the world. And so after Bumbershoot, I was feeling great, and I was looking at, okay, what's next for Dollhouse? I just had this incredible event, but I still have inventory and I want to be able to reach greater audiences. So I reached out to uh, Seattle Storm's women's basketball player from the WNBA, Nika Mule, and asked her if she was interested in looking at some of my pieces for wearing for her tunnel walks. If you don't follow the WNBA, tunnel walks are a big way that they promote the games, and it's an intersection of fashion and individuality and hype for the games. And I emailed Nika to ask her, and she got back to me and she was like, I love your brand. Like, this is so sick. And so I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm really, like, I love women's basketball. I go to the games, and it's honestly been a dream for me to dress women's basketball players. And so I got everything ready, prepared to send them to her, and she connected me with her stylist, Brittany Hampton, who's an incredible stylist. She works with a lot of athletes and is a celebrity stylist. And essentially, Brittany called me like the day before and was like, we're something big happened and like we haven't told you about this yet, but Nika's gonna be doing a partnership with Smart Water and we want to include you on like the promotion for that. So I got the opportunity to have my work promoted by Smart Water as well as the Seattle Storm and go to Nika's place and do a whole shoot with a photographer of like the unboxing everything and like doing a fitting. And it was so incredible because I was nervous because I really care about this. Like this is my passion. It's my early work for my life's work. And I actually had fun, which is just like so rewarding because I love design, but sometimes nerves can get in the way. And it was so just incredible to, try things and be like, okay, do we like this? Do we not like this? And she was incredible, such a warm person. And it was just so fulfilling to bring that to her and have her promote it to the world and to the city. So I'm just been like so grateful for how the world has received me through me like coming showing up and being like, this is my brand, this is what we're doing. And it's just been incredible. So that's Dollhouse. That's what I've been up to for the past couple months. And it's truly only the beginning. I'm going to be producing a new collection as well as doing pop-up events to connect with community and host events like zine making. And it's really just been incredible. And I'm so grateful for everyone who has supported me through this. I used to like not understand the phrase like I couldn't have done it without them, but I truly, truly like I totally get it, and I truly could not have done it without like my parents and my friends helping me. And it's not to say that like I'm not working incredibly hard and I'm not like bearing my soul to this, but it's so true that community is so important. And so I wanted to also offer some reflections about design school. This is especially probably helpful for people in undergrad who have not really been out of an education system for like 12 years. But it might be a good refresher also to people who are, in school, but have also been out. But these are just things that I feel like I've realized were really important in school, and that, if I was to go back to grad school, I would be paying special attention to. So let me get into it. The first one is use your resources. And I think the most joyful part of this is community. Because when you're in a major, presumably other people will also really be interested in the same things as you, and they're easily accessible right there. And that's not really necessarily the case when you live in like a huge city. And I work at an engineering company. So the people that I work with are not designers, and we don't really relate to things in the same way, which is totally fine. But in order to have a design community, which is really important, that requires, going out to events and connecting with people and introducing yourself, which is a really great practice. But there's something really, really special about having that built in. And we have that at Tech. And I'm that's why I really just feel so warmly about Rodent Society, because that's like what y'all are doing. And it's so important. And I'm so grateful that you've created this, Aussie, and that Alex, you're supporting it, and everyone in the club is like making it happen, because it's just so important to make what you want, to make your time is what you want it to be. And I'd also just add, like with community, don't just see your peers as your community, but see like every person around you as your community. So professors, like if you have an idea for research, just pitch it. Like the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no, or they're going to laugh at you, but you'll be okay. Or like business owners, like there's so many people who you can work with to make things happen. Okay, secondly, classes. If you're already paying for school and you have time, go to like that random class that you are interested in. Even if you can't like take it for grade credit, there's so much expertise at an institution that you can harness. Okay, labs and equipment. Um, the first thing that I realized when I was out of school was like, wow, okay, I have to pay for Adobe Illustrator, which I totally do, because there's nothing that compares to the Adobe Suite. I'll say it. But as far as equipment, like the labs, like and the camera equipment, and like Virginia Tech has an anechoic chamber. That's incredible. That's so expensive. So even if you're not doing something that's like for a project or whatever, like go explore and have fun doing it, because it's you never know when something is going to be useful, like that one small experience. And then I would add, go to as many lectures as you can, because, big money brings in interesting things, and the university has a lot of money. So I would go to that. But I would also say that you should leave if it's boring to you, because your time is really, really valuable. But still be respectful if you do leave. Okay. The second thing that I want to talk about is your point of view. And I don't know how this is in architecture, but in industrial design, we're very, very user focused, which is very, very good. However, I think that people should be encouraged more to practice developing their own point of view. And so what I mean by that is figuring out your belief system and what you care about. So different ways, different like prompts for that would be like, I believe this, or I care about feminism, or it makes me really happy to organize things for people, or I feel upset when there's inequity in housing or something like that. And figure out what you care about. And then use every assignment, I'd say. This is what I wish I had done differently in school. Use every assignment to practice making things that are from your point of view. and that serve your own values. Um, because this time, you're paying for this time, and you have an incredible opportunity to practice in a really, really safe space and that has everything you need to make your ideas happen. And then I think naturally from practicing with class assignments, you start to like have desires and be like, oh, I would really love to. I mean, for me, that was, I would really love to make clothes for the WNBA. I would really love to make public furniture. And then once you've attached yourself to a goal and a desire, then you can take that back to like your class assignments. And then you're really pursuing something that is not just meaningful for school, but like meaningful in a long-term sense. And that's what I think future making is, which is like identifying something that you believe in and then and having a vision of it and practicing seeing yourself being someone who makes that happen and then actually making it happen. And using your resources, like everything I talked about with school, using your love, using your energy and your life force to make that happen. Because that's what we have the power to do in design. We're making the world. And that's extremely important. And to be conscious about that is going to make you able to do that in a more satisfying way for your life. And I just want to say that manifestation is real. It's real. And it's real, and you also have to take action, but it's real. Okay. I think the last thing is that time is about time, which is you have time to play. You have time because no one is watching you. But also your time is really valuable. So don't waste it and feel that if you don't feel like something is worth doing, don't do it. I would say that you should spend enough time on your work to be proud of it, but also spend enough time away from it to be a person. Because, I've talked about design this whole talk, and a lot about design is pouring your soul and what you believe into work. But, and that's beautiful, but at the end of the day, like you're gonna go to bed and you need to have friends and like a community because at the end of the day, like that's what it's all for, is like being with people and connecting to the world. So go on hikes, like host a dinner party, go to a movie. It's all part of it. And for me, I'm a better person and I'm a better designer when I'm participating in the world. And also, I would say have patience because it can be really painful to not be making work that you want to make or to not be making work at the fidelity that you want to produce. But you have time, and just because you don't have what you want right now doesn't mean it's not coming and doesn't mean that your hard work is not going to add up to fruition and people seeing you. So just be kind to yourself during the hard times. And feed yourself, which by that I mean eat food, go party, connect to nature or whatever is spiritual for you. And give yourself really good media, I would say. And some resources I want to recommend are Daily Rituals, Women at Work, which is a book about apparently 143 artists. And when I read this book, I just feel so seen because for me, like design work and art is very emotional, and when things are hard, it hurts. And this book talks about other people's experiences being an artist and being a designer, and I it feels extremely comforting to me to see that like other people feel this way, and it's actually very normal. And it doesn't mean that it's not hard, but it's it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong just because it's hard. Creative Calling is a book about developing your creative practice and your community around your art. And it's been really valuable for me for developing my practice. And then this is a link in the middle, which is called Free Game, and it was developed by Virgil Abloh, who was a really renowned clothing designer, set designer, or not set, but sneakers and many, many endeavors. And he lays out how to start your own brand. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would really check that out. Um, but yeah, I just want to give the message that creatives are trying really hard, and if it's painful sometimes, it's okay, and you got this. And I wanted to explain that I call myself a creator because I do so many things. Like I'm a designer, I'm a founder, I'm a business person, I'm a marketer, and all of those things take creativity. And so this is the label that feels right for what I'm doing right now. And these are two memes. I guess they're not really memes, but things that really resonate with me. This one is an interview with Virgil Abloh. And the interviewer says, "How did you get this job?" And he says, "I dreamt about it." And he's a really big inspiration for me. And I want to emphasize that getting in touch with what you want and your desires is really crucial for creative satisfaction. And dreaming about it and manifesting things and taking action is what I found to be the key to success. And also, I want to say, like, this is Rick Rubin. He says, "Do what you can with what you have. Nothing is needed. There are no excuses." And I, we often talk about like constraints in design school, and we kind of make them up and everything. And it's sort of like glamorous and like, oh, my client like wants stainless steel or like whatever. But in what I found are like working with constraints of like, oh, I don't have enough money to make this happen, or I only have this much fabric, and making it work. That's like actually where the gold is. And that's where really cool stuff comes out, is when you just acknowledge where you're at and then do what you can with what you have. So with that, I will close. I like with this encouraging message, I also want to say I'm here if anybody wants to talk about creative stuff. Um, my creative community is really important to me, and I spend a fair amount of time, doing critique with other people. So if you want to connect, that's my email. Um, and if we have any questions, I'm ready to start that. Thank you.
Hi. Um, Thank you so much. That was incredible. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. That was really awesome. I just want to, I have a question, and
yeah.
then I can open it up to anyone else that has a, or actually, I'll just ask if anyone else have a question for Grace before I ask my question. Sure.
Hey, Ozzy, I have a question for Grace. Grace, so so first of all, I think what you're doing is really admirable, and I really enjoy the amount of effort you've put into it, and it seems to be paying off. One thing I was thinking about during the lecture was the idea of like authorship and mark making, and the idea that like you or whoever as an author of creating things, drawing things, whatever, um, like there's an authorship in the things that come from your hand, and they're very unique to you. And so when I think about art, I think of art as that person's expression, and I see it as something that they've made, and that's about it. And I'm not very familiar with the world of fashion, but the thing that's different to me between fashion and art is that fashion and clothing are things that you wear, and they're tied to your own expression. And you mentioned your vision for making a statement against the office culture, and then using graffiti and formal attire and that combination to make that statement. But what my question is, or something I just been pointing out, is how, and I don't necessarily know how the markings on the clothing are made, but um, how do you see that like authorship and other people wearing clothing as like a form of expression when everything is coming from one author? Or like I don't know how, I don't necessarily like, because you're putting out these lines of clothing and people choose to buy them, which is great. But if you're the one making the markings, how does that express another person? That sounds like a weird question, but it just, to me, it's like somebody told me one time, they were like, I wouldn't want to live, if I'm a creative person, I wouldn't want to live in another like creative person's design for a house. Like I wouldn't want to live in their world. So with clothing, to me, it's similar, where it's like, I don't want to wear what someone else made. And I'm sure I mean, clearly there are people that do, and the pieces are very nice. So I think you're dropping these lines, and people love the fashion. But something that I'm thinking is like, well, uh, how do you see it being an expression of the person who buys it if you're the one making it?
Yeah, that is really interesting. And I was thinking about that as I was making it, because like as a creative myself, I feel that way, you know. But there's a difference between like um well, how to say this? A lot of how actually that we express ourselves is who we associate with. Like, let's say you ask somebody, oh, like, who's your favorite artist? Let's say you say, like, Bon Iver. That, when people say, like, something, when they say what their favorite thing is, that's that's them expressing something about themselves, that they like that, and they're part of, like, that subgroup. So I guess what the answer to this is, like, people are expressing the desire of self-expression through choosing something where someone has expressed themselves. It's not like they can't like go take a suit and then do art on it. Like that's not, I'm not saying that other people shouldn't do that. Um, but it's a design, and choosing something that you like is part of self-expression, you know, not just, you don't have to have made it for it to be like a part of self-expression. But I was really thinking about that too, because authorship is important to me, and all of this graphics is stuff that I've made. Like I'm not taking other people's graffiti and putting it on clothes. But it was something that I thought about. And I'm glad you brought it up because my goal really is to inspire people to do that and to inspire people who are not expressing themselves and who are only expressing themselves through being adjacent to subgroups to actually take agency to be artistic in their life. So that's how I see it growing from, you know, them choosing a piece of art, a piece of clothing art, which I've created to be part of their wardrobe, to then bringing their own voice and being inspired by my creativity in the garments to bring their voice to the situations and the creative choices in their own life.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
And then I have a question. So it's just a question about like marketing and just because I'm embarking on like a business idea right now,
Yeah.
and that's part of my thesis. And you like I don't know the way you're marketing, it seems like it's working. I mean, just what I guess what are tips, and this is for anyone who's starting a business or interested in this sort of thing. Like, what are some tips about marketing or how to go about that, or kind of a general question, but
Well, did you want to add anything?
maybe, yeah.
Okay. Um, with marketing, I'm trying to have fun because it's not something that I genuinely want to do. But it can be fun, you know? And what I will say is like, it's good to create some parameters, like choose a font or two fonts that you're always going to use so that you don't have to make that decision every time and they always go together. Like choose a font size, like get organized and make templates or find templates like on Canva. And then like write down a bunch of ideas that you have for it and like have fun making them. There's like a lot of advice out there on like content creation and scheduling. And I don't even feel like an expert. Like I'm just doing the best I can. But the core thing that helps me is like being inspired by other people's work and then having fun doing it and seeing it as an extension of my creative process because the content that I like and like sales stuff that I like is sales that looks so good and is so well told or so funny or so casual that I don't even look at it as marketing. So that's my advice. Thanks for your question.
So I'll open up the floor if anyone else has any questions.
I have a question. Just let me know if the connection's not so good. My name is Elisa. Is part of marketing just having an intuitive sense about who would want to be connected to your brand? Like when you said the WNBA, some you was just connected those two, and it was a deep intuition, probably a very informed decision to reach out to them, and there was this synchronicity that just worked. Is that part of it, thinking about your brand, your product, and thinking about who would be drawn to that, who would benefit from that? Is that part of it, or is that too idealistic for me to say that?
I mean, it's definitely part of it. It's really not smart to create a bunch of inventory if you haven't done market research for who your target audience is. So a lot of that's like boring stuff. But if you're gonna create a business, you kind of have to be a little bit rooted in reality and stuff like that. But also it's hard because art is like subjective, but I really tried to like I really try to have a balance between really highly analytical decision, like information, and then very much feeling. And the decision to reach out to Nika was more of a feeling one, because it just felt like something that would work because, she's in Seattle, she's expressing herself, and that's a lot of part of her brand, and that's, what I'm promoting. So it just worked out. So yeah, I would say that, is that part of marketing? It's definitely part of marketing, to know your audience, but and there's so much research on that because there's like trend forecasting. But I don't think you can just say whether or not you're going to be successful based on if you do research or not, but it's definitely part of it.
So it's marketing research and gut feeling and knowing
Yeah.
when to, okay, thanks so much.
No problem.
Actually, I have one last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I want to have a brick and mortar store for Dollhouse. Regular partnerships with the WNBA and like producing a line every season, as well as like working on being bi-coastal and like developing the Seattle fashion row and culture here for fashion.
Awesome, thank you. And with that, I'll say, manifestation is real. And thank you.
Manifestation is real.
All right.
Thank you, Rodent Society.
Thanks so much. This was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Seth, for your question.
Yep.